Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
I didn't tell them what I did for work or how much I earned. I wanted to see what they were really like. I arrived wearing an old coat, and my mother-in-law whispered, "You can't wash the province off her." But an hour later, she turned on the TV. Marisol gripped the handrail on the bus so tightly her knuckles turned white. In her other hand, she clutched a worn-out bag she'd bought back in her student days. Well, that's it, she thought, staring out the window at the passing outskirts of Buenos Aires. It's about to begin. But before we continue, leave a comment and tell us what city you're listening from. Let's see how far our stories reach. The old coat, which she had purposely pulled from the far corner of her closet, smelled of mothballs and memories of a time when she had just arrived in the capital from a small town in Salta province. Back then, the coat had seemed the height of elegance to her dark blue, with large buttons, bought by her mother with the last bit of money before her daughter left for the big city. "Wear it, sweetheart. You need decent clothes in the capital," her mother had said, gently brushing off invisible specks from the shoulders. Now, 8 years later, the coat looked hopelessly outdated, worn in places, with pilling on the sleeves. Just the thing for today's visit. Miguel was waiting at the bus stop, shifting nervously from foot to foot. "Marisol, are you sure you want to go through with this?" he asked as soon as she stepped off the bus. "Maybe we should just tell them the truth?" Marisol shook her head, adjusting her old scarf. "No, Miguel. Ever since your mother found out about our wedding, all she's done is repeat that you married a poor girl from the provinces. Let her see what she wants to see today." Miguel sighed but didn't argue. He knew his mother, Valeria, a retired literature teacher who had spent her life dreaming of a brilliant match for her only son. And instead, he had brought home a girl from the provinces, with no wealthy parents, no connections, just a degree from a local university and a fierce desire to work. Miguel's parents' house stood at the end of a street in San Isidro, a typical 90s construction, pale brick, barred windows, a small garden with jasmine and a lemon tree. Valeria peeked out the window as soon as they opened the gate. Marisol saw her mother-in-law's eyes scan her from head to toe, and the slight grimace when she noticed the old coat. Well then, the play begins, Marisol thought, putting on the timid smile of a provincial girl stepping into a decent house for the first time. "Hello, Valeria," Marisol said softly as she crossed the threshold. Her mother-in-law nodded, not even trying to appear welcoming. "Come in. Take off your shoes, leave them by the door." Marisol obediently took off her worn-out shoes, the same ones she'd worn back in university, with scuffed toes and worn-down heels. Valeria's eyes followed them, and Marisol heard her whisper to her husband Jorge, who had stepped out of the kitchen with a newspaper in hand. "You can't wash the province off her. Just look, that coat is from the war era, shoes like a peasant's. And this is our daughter-in-law. My God." Unlike his wife, Jorge was a gentle and tactful man. He gave Marisol an awkward smile and extended his hand for a handshake. "Hello, Marisol. Come in, let's have some mate." Marisol nodded gratefully. She had always liked her father-in-law, a quiet engineer who had spent his whole life working at a factory in Avellaneda, a lover of chess and tango. But in this house, it was Valeria who ruled, and her opinion was law. At the table, Valeria made no effort to hide her displeasure. "Miguel says you work. Where exactly, if you don't mind me asking?" she said, pouring mate into the calabashes. The calabashes were from an old set her pride and joy, inherited from her mother. Marisol took hers carefully, trying to hold it the proper way, as Valeria had often pointed out. "I work in an office," Marisol replied softly. "Pushing papers, answering calls." "A secretary," Valeria snorted with disdain. "Well, I suppose that's not bad for a girl without an education." "Marisol has a university degree, Mom," Miguel tried to defend her. "A degree?" Valeria threw up her hands. "From some provincial university, where they don't even have decent professors. That's not an education, it's just a diploma for show." Marisol lowered her eyes, pretending to be embarrassed. Inside, she was boiling. Yes, she hadn't graduated from the University of Buenos Aires but from a regular teaching university in Salta. But she had graduated with honors, top of her class. And after that, an internship in Spain, won through brutal competition. Then a job at an international company, where in just 3 years she rose from entry-level to leading an entire division. She now had over 50 people reporting to her. And her salary. Valeria could only dream of that kind of money. But Marisol stayed silent, gripping the calabash tighter. "So, when are you buying an apartment?" Valeria pressed on. "Or will you keep hopping from one rental to another? I told Miguel he should have married Luisa. Remember her?" Jorge? Dr. Herrera's daughter. They've got an apartment in Recoleta and a father with deep pockets. And this one? She's got nothing, no assets, no property. Miguel's face turned red. Mom, that's enough. We're doing just fine and we'll buy an apartment soon. On your programmer's salary? Valeria sneered. You'll be saving until retirement. If you'd married smartly, my grandchildren would already be growing up in decent conditions instead of in rented flats. Then, unexpectedly, Jorge joined the conversation. Valeria, come on. They're young, they'll have everything in time. Marisol's a good girl, hardworking. Valeria waved him off. You always defend everyone, Jorge, but I'm just telling it like it is. I see my son got involved with God knows who. Just look at her dressed like she came from the dumpster. People in our circles don't walk around like that. And what circle is that, exactly? Miguel snapped. The circle of educated people, his mother shot back. I worked my whole life in a school, raised the best students. Your father a university-educated engineer. And her? A provincial girl who just got lucky and ended up in Buenos Aires. Marisol felt her hands begin to tremble. Not from hurt, she had long since stopped letting herself feel offended. From anger. A provincial girl? Yes, she grew up in a small town in Salta, with only 2 schools and 1 cinema. But her parents both doctors, by the way. Her father, a surgeon with golden hands, had patients coming from across the province for operations. Her mother, a pediatrician, had nursed hundreds of newborns back to health. They weren't rich, but they gave their daughter something far more valuable: the ability to work hard and never give up. Valeria, Marisol said quietly, I understand I may not have lived up to your expectations. But I love Miguel, and he loves me. Isn't that what matters most? Love. Valeria scoffed. You can't raise a family on love alone. And what will you live on? Your secretary's salary? She got up from the table, walked over to the sideboard, and took out a photo album. Look, this is me when I was young. See how I dressed? Dresses from the best shops on Florida Street, Spanish shoes. And my hair? I went to the salon every week. And you? When was the last time you even saw a stylist? Your hair hangs like straw, your nails are bare. It's embarrassing to show you off as a daughter-in-law. Miguel jumped up from the table. That's it, Mom, we're leaving. But Marisol put a hand on his shoulder. Wait, Valeria's not done yet. And indeed, Valeria was just getting started. She was pacing around the room, waving the photo album in her hand. I dreamed of a proper daughter-in-law. Someone I could introduce to my friends. Look what a wife my son found. Educated, from a good family, dressed with taste. And what do I have to show them? This? She pointed toward Marisol. A ragged little nobody in hand-me-downs? Valeria, really that's enough. Jorge tried to interject, but his wife cut him off. Be quiet, Jorge. You've kept silent your whole life. No wonder our son grew up spineless. Picked up the first girl he saw, now he's stuck with her for life. Suddenly, she stopped and glanced at the clock. Oh, I almost forgot. Stories from Life is starting now. New episode. They promised something interesting. She quickly walked into the living room and turned on the TV. Marisol exchanged a look with Miguel. He shrugged. His mother's obsession with talk shows was legendary. The show's opening rolled on screen, familiar music playing. The host, Jorge Lanata, appeared with his signature sincere smile. Good evening, dear friends. Tonight, we have an incredible story. A story about how important it is not to judge people by appearances and how misleading first impressions can be. Please welcome Maria Lopez, CEO of Technosoft, one of Argentina's youngest and most successful businesswomen. Valeria, comfortably settled in her chair, let out an approving oomph. Now that's what I call a woman. Not like some people. And then the camera zoomed in on the guest in the studio. Valeria choked on her mate. On the screen, dressed in an elegant business suit, with perfect hair and makeup, sat a young woman who looked strikingly like her daughter-in-law. The same gray eyes. The same shape of face. Even the mole on her left cheek in exactly the same spot. Maria, the host was saying, tell our viewers how your journey to success began. The woman on the screen smiled. You know, Jorge, I come from a small town in Salta. My parents were ordinary doctors at a local hospital. We didn't have much money, but we had the most important thing: love and support. When I was admitted to the teacher training university, my mother sold her gold earrings, her only piece of jewelry, to buy me a proper coat for studying in the city. Dark blue, with big buttons. I still keep it to this day. Valeria slowly turned her head to look at Marisol's coat hanging in the entryway. Dark blue, with big buttons. This This must be a coincidence, she muttered. The interview continued on the screen. After university, I won a grant for an internship in Spain. That was the turning point. There, I studied modern project management techniques, discovered cutting-edge technology. When I returned to Argentina, I got a job at an international company. I started as a junior specialist and, in 3 years, led an entire department. And how did you decide to start your own business? The host asked. Maria on the screen paused for a moment. You know, at some point I realized I had hit the ceiling in corporate life. I wanted more to build something of my own, bring my own ideas to life. Of course, it was scary, especially when I found out I was pregnant. But my husband supported me. He said he believed in me, and I took the leap. I resigned in my 7th month of pregnancy and registered my company. Valeria clutched the armrests of her chair. How old? How old is she? She rasped. 28, Maria answered from the screen, as if she'd heard the question. I know it's quite young to run a business at this level, but I have an amazing team over 50 top-tier specialists. We develop software for the biggest Argentine and international corporations. And your husband? Is he in IT as well? The host asked. Yes, Miguel is a programmer. We met at a conference 5 years ago. He's a wonderful person and a brilliant specialist. He currently heads the development department at my company. You know, people often ask how can a husband work under his wife's leadership, but we have no issue with that. We're partners in life and in business. Valeria slowly, as if in a dream, turned toward Marisol. She was sitting at the table, calmly finishing her now cold mate. Miguel often offered to tell you about my work, Marisol said softly, without looking at her mother-in-law. But you always cut him off, said you didn't care to hear about secretarial duties. So I didn't insist. Meanwhile, the screen showed the company office, a spacious open-plan space with panoramic windows, modern furniture, young employees at their monitors. We recently moved into a new office in Puerto Madero, Maria commented. 2,000 square meters, all the latest equipment. And we started out in a tiny rented apartment, just me, Miguel, and 2 other programmers. I imagine you already have your own home? The host asked. Yes, we recently bought an apartment. Actually, 2, we combined them into one large space. Miguel says I spend too much on renovations, but I want our daughter to have a beautiful environment to grow and thrive in. A daughter? Congratulations. What's her name? Vita. After her grandmother. Valeria clutched her chest. Vita. Named after. But how? She looked at Marisol again, then at the screen, then back at Marisol. It's not you. It can't be. You're a poor provincial nobody, Marisol finished calmly. The one who was lucky to marry your son. Maria, you must have encountered bias? The host asked. A young female leader in a traditionally male-dominated field. Oh yes, Maria nodded on screen. It was especially hard at the beginning. I remember going into my first meeting with potential investors. I dressed as formally as I could, prepared my presentation. They looked at me and asked, so where's your boss? They couldn't believe a 25-year-old girl from the provinces was running the company. And how did you convince them? With numbers, facts, and results. Our very first project paid for itself in 3 months and began turning a steady profit. After that, the questions about my age and background sort of disappeared. Maria smiled on screen. You know, I'm actually grateful to those who didn't believe in me. It pushed me to work even harder, to prove that I'm worth something. Valeria stood up from the chair, her legs were shaking. Marisol, my dear, I didn't know. I thought. You thought what you wanted to think, Marisol said, standing up as well. You saw a girl from the provinces and decided poor, uneducated, unworthy of your son. And to ask? To take interest? No, why bother? You already knew everything. But why? Why didn't you say anything? Valeria was as pale as a sheet. Why should I? So you could start fawning over me like you did with that Luisa and her daddy's money? I didn't need that. I wanted you to accept me as a person, not a wallet with legs. On the screen, the interview was drawing to a close. What advice would you give to young women just starting their journey? The host asked. Maria paused and thought. Don't be afraid. Don't listen to those who say you won't make it. Work, learn, grow. And this is very important, stay true to yourself. I still keep that old coat my mother bought me before I left for the city. Sometimes I take it out, try it on, just to remember where I came from and how far I've come. And one last question, what are your plans for the future? I want to open free programming courses for girls from small towns, so they have the chance I once had. And also, Maria smiled on the screen. I want to build a better relationship with my mother-in-law. She's a wonderful woman, we just haven't really gotten to know each other yet. The show ended. Silence fell over the room. Valeria stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the black TV screen, then at Marisol. Tears were running down her cheeks, smudging her mascara. "Forgive me," she whispered. "Forgive me, my dear. I'm such a foolish old woman." "No need, Valeria." Marisol walked up to her and gently wrapped her arms around her shoulders. Valeria flinched at the touch, then suddenly pulled Marisol into a tight embrace. "Velrita. Named after me. My granddaughter. And me? What was I saying? My God, what have I done?" Miguel stood in the doorway, watching the scene unfold. Jorge quietly approached him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You knew?" he asked in a whisper. "Of course, Dad. I work at her company." "And you didn't say anything?" "Marisol asked me not to. She said let them figure it out for themselves, who's really worth what." Jorge nodded. "You've got a wise wife. And patient. Any other woman would have told us all to go to hell long ago." Valeria still couldn't calm down. "And me? I called her a provincial nobody, uneducated. My God, what will the neighbors think? I told everyone what a failure Miguel's wife was. And Dona Carmen, remember her, Jorge, from across the street? She never stopped bragging about her daughter-in-law, the lawyer. And I have a daughter-in-law who's the CEO of an international company." "Mama," Miguel interjected, "please don't start swinging to the other extreme now. Marisol is the same person she always was. You just never wanted to get to know her." "What do you know?" Valeria threw up her hands. "How do I make it up to her now? Darling, sweet girl, please forgive this foolish old woman. I was just ignorant, judging by appearances, the way I was taught." "Valeria," Marisol said gently, "let's just forget what happened and start over." "Forget? How can I forget?" Valeria exclaimed. "I'll never forgive myself. You said on TV you want to build a relationship. Was that true? After everything I said to you?" "It's true. You're not strangers to me. And Velrita needs a grandmother." "Velrita." Valeria sniffled again. Can I see her? At least a photo?" Marisol took out her phone and opened her gallery. "Here, look. She's 8 months old now." On the screen, a chubby-cheeked baby with big gray eyes smiled, the spitting image of her mother. "She's beautiful," Valeria breathed. "And we didn't even know." "Miguel, shame on you, why didn't you tell us?" "Well, Mom," Miguel said, "every time I tried to talk about our life, you'd cut me off. You always said, no kids until you live in proper conditions. What kind of mother am I?" Valeria cried again. "My granddaughter is growing up and I didn't even know it. Her first tooth must have come in already?" "2, Marisol smiled. "We just celebrated last week." "Celebrated? Without us? And where do you live? Is it far?" "In Puerto Madero. Without traffic, about 40 minutes by car." "Puerto Madero?" Valeria gasped. "Jorge, did you hear that? And here I was going on about rental apartments. Darling, can we come visit sometime? Whenever it's convenient for you." "Of course you can. Come tomorrow if you like. Velrita will be happy to meet her grandma and grandpa." "Tomorrow? Oh dear, what should we do? Jorge, we need to buy a gift. What do you get an 8-month-old girl? I have no idea. Darling, help me, give me some suggestions." "No need for any gifts, Valeria. Just come," Marisol said. "What do you mean, no gifts? The first time I'm seeing my granddaughter and I come empty-handed? What will people think of me?" Valeria had already pulled herself together and was quickly turning back into the energetic woman everyone knew, only now her energy was channeled in a very different direction. "Jorge, write this down. Tomorrow morning baby store, then the bakery, we need a cake. Or maybe I should bake a dulce de leche cake myself. Marisol, what kind of cake do you like?" Marisol and Miguel exchanged a glance. "Mama, there's no need to fuss like this," Miguel said. "What do you mean no need? I haven't seen my granddaughter in 8 months. I've missed so much. Now I have to make up for it. Marisol, what does Velrita eat? Any allergies? How does she sleep?" "Valeria, slow down," Jorge interrupted. "Let the young one say something." "What are they going to say? Marisol probably won't even let me in the house after everything I've said. And she'd be completely right. Valeria, I told you let's start over. Come around 3 tomorrow. Velrita will have just woken up from her nap and be in a good mood. 3 o'clock. Got it. And what should I bring her? Toys? Clothes? Is it too early for books? We have everything we need. Just come. No way. I'm going to see my granddaughter for the first time. I have to bring something. At least a rattle. Or maybe a learning toy. There are so many interesting things on the market these days. The rest of the evening unfolded very differently than it had started. Valeria bombarded Marisol with questions about her work, the birth, how she and Miguel met. Marisol answered patiently, showing photos on her phone. Valeria gasped, clutched her hands to her chest, occasionally started crying again as she remembered her harsh words. You know, she said as the couple was getting ready to leave, I always felt there was something special about you. No, really. You'd be sitting there, drinking mate, so quiet but your eyes. There's a strength in your eyes. I used to think some pushy little provincial girl probably trapped my son. But now, look how it all turned out. Mama, that's enough, Miguel said tiredly. We're heading out. It's time to put Rita to bed. Yes, of course. Routine is important. Marisol, does she sleep on a schedule, or? Marisol smiled. We try to keep her on a routine, said Marisol. But it doesn't always work. I often stay late at work. She stays late. She's a CEO. Of course she stays late. Jorge, did you hear that? Our daughter-in-law is a CEO. As she walked the young couple to the door, Valeria couldn't stop fussing over Marisol. And don't wear that old coat anymore, all right? Buy yourself something nice. Although, what am I saying? I'm sure you already have a mink coat. I don't have any mink coat, Valeria. Just a regular one. I just didn't wear it today. Why not? I wanted to see how you'd react. I'm sorry if that little masquerade hurt you. I'm just tired of being seen only through the lens of my position and salary. I wanted my own family, at least, to see me simply as Marisol. Valeria teared up again. Family? After everything I said, how can we call ourselves that? Ugh, I'm such a fool. Spent my whole life teaching children not to judge by appearances, and look at me. It's all right, Valeria. Really, everything's fine. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. We'll definitely come. With gifts. Outside, on the way to the car, Miguel wrapped his arm around his wife. You were amazing. Anyone else would have run out the door after Mom's first few words. I wanted to run, Marisol admitted. But then I thought she didn't mean harm. She's just used to certain stereotypes. Old school teacher, what can you expect? Old school? You should have seen her face when she recognized you on TV. I thought she was going to faint. I can imagine. Too bad it had to be so harsh. But otherwise she wouldn't have understood. Yeah, now she'll be telling all the neighbors that her daughter-in-law is a CEO. Get ready for visits from all Mom's friends. I'll survive. The important thing is, the ice is broken. Maybe now Rita will have a proper grandmother. Proper? You're an optimist. Mom's going to call 10 times a day with parenting advice. That's fine. We'll manage. What matters is that Rita will grow up in a full family with grandparents. That's important. They got into the car, a modest Toyota that Marisol had deliberately never traded in for something flashier. Home? Miguel asked. No, let's stop by the office first. I need to check something on the project. Marisol, it's 9 o'clock. You promised to work less. Just half an hour. Valeritas with the nanny, everything's fine. Miguel sighed but didn't argue. He knew his wife's persistence and hard work were her defining traits. It was thanks to those qualities that a girl from the provinces had managed to build a successful business in the ruthless world of IT. You know, he said, steering onto the autopista, I'm proud of you. Not everyone could handle what my mom said to you today. I knew what I was getting into. And besides, your mom isn't mean. Just a little narrow-minded. But that can be fixed. Fixed, huh? We'll see what you say when she starts teaching you how to swaddle Rita properly. She's already out of swaddling. Oh, my mom will find something to lecture you on how to feed her, how to dress her, how to develop her. She raised me, after all, and I turned out all right. Then maybe she's worth listening to. Miguel glanced at his wife. Are you serious? Why not? Each generation has its own experience. Some things are outdated, of course, but some are still useful. The key is knowing what to filter out. My little philosopher. Okay, let's see how philosophical you stay when she starts criticizing your company management methods. She won't. She doesn't know anything about business. And you think that will stop her? Giving advice is her favorite thing in the world. They both laughed. The tension of the past few hours was finally beginning to fade. Ahead of them, the lights of Puerto Madero glittered. On the 23rd floor, the office of the company Marisol had built from the ground up was waiting. You know, she said, your mom was right about one thing. Oh yeah? What's that? You really can't wash the province off me. And thank God. It's that provincial stubbornness that got me where I am. Provincial stubbornness? Is that a new term in business literature? Why not? One day I'll write a book how a provincial girl conquered Buenos Aires. Total bestseller. No doubt. Everything you touch, you see through to the end. Except for empanadas. I still can't get those right. But your locro is incredible. And really, what kind of provincial girl doesn't know how to make locro? They laughed again. The car turned into the underground parking lot of the business center. The security guard recognized the CEO's car and gave a friendly nod. Good evening, Maria. Working late? Hi, Carlos. Just came to check something. How are things? All good. My daughter just got into university studying programming. That's great. If she ever wants an internship, tell her she's welcome with us. In the elevator, Marisol pulled out her phone and quickly skimmed her emails. Oh, a reply from the Spanish partners. They agreed to our terms. Seriously? Marisol, that's a huge contract. Yep. 6 months of negotiations and finally, a yes. We need to celebrate. Absolutely. We'll invite the parents over, celebrate everything at once. The office welcomed them with soft lighting and silence. Only one monitor glowed in the far corner. One of the programmers was still working late. Andres, is that you? Miguel called out. Yeah, came the reply. I just can't catch this bug. Leave it for tomorrow morning. A fresh head works better. Just 30 more minutes. Marisol walked into her office, spacious but modest. A panoramic window, a large desk, a sofa for guests. On the wall photos, her parents, Miguel, little Rita. And in a frame a newspaper clipping from 10 years ago, teacher training university graduate Maria Lopez wins scholarship to study in Spain. Remember that day? Miguel asked, noticing her looking at the clipping. Of course. Mom cried with joy, and Dad said, well, now you're definitely not coming back. But I thought, no, I will come back. Not alone, but with a suitcase full of knowledge. And you did. And with a lot more than just knowledge. This is only the beginning. You know what I'm planning next? Miguel sat on the armrest of her chair. Tell me. I want to open branches in the provinces. Start with my hometown Salta. There are so many talented kids there who just don't have opportunities. We'll organize training programs, internships, and hire the best. Your parents will be thrilled. I hope so. I haven't told them yet. I want it to be a surprise. You love surprises. Like today, with Mom. That was harsh, wasn't it? Harsh but effective. She won't be calling you a provincial nobody anymore. I wasn't that offended. I just wanted her to see the real me. Not the job title, not the bank account, the person. She saw you. Maybe a bit too well. Now she's going to swing to the other extreme. That's okay. We'll manage. The important thing is, we're reconnecting. That matters for Rita to know she has a big family. And for us, too. Parents aren't forever. Don't jinx it. Mine are still young. Dad just turned 60. Young, sure. But time flies. I mean, it feels like I just graduated from university yesterday, and now I have a company, a child. Feeling philosophical? A little. You know, when your mom said all those things today, I thought it could have all gone differently. What if I hadn't won that grant, hadn't met you at that conference? You'd have made it anyway, with your drive. Maybe. But I'm glad it worked out this way. That you're here, that we have Rita. And even your mom, complicated as she means well. She loves in her own way. Of course she does. She just doesn't know how to show it. It's the teacher in her, always correcting, always teaching. But I'm proud of you for not lashing back. What's the point? Anger just breeds more anger. It's better to calmly show someone they're wrong. Like today. Marisol turned on her computer and quickly skimmed through a few documents. Done. We can go home now. Finally. Valerita's probably asleep by now. She should be. Although she's a night owl, just like her mom, she might still be awake. The ride home flew by. At the door, they were met by the nanny, a young woman with a degree in early childhood education, carefully chosen by Marisol from dozens of candidates. Rita just fell asleep. Ate well, we played all evening. She's working on a new drawing, just scribbles for now, but with such focus. Thanks, Soledad. See you tomorrow. Good night. By the way, Maria, aren't you expecting guests tomorrow? Should I come a bit later? No, come at the usual time. You'll get to meet Valerita's grandparents. After the nanny left, Marisol tiptoed into the nursery. Rita was sleeping in her crib, arms spread wide. Next to her pillow lay her favorite bunny, a gift from her dad. Marisol stood watching her daughter for a moment, then quietly stepped out. Sleeping like an angel, she whispered to Miguel. Takes after her mom out cold after a long day. They walked to the kitchen. Marisol pulled the leftovers from the fridge and set them to heat up. We need to plan tomorrow's menu. Your parents are coming. I want to serve something nice. Don't stress. Mom will bring half the kitchen with her. She's in full guilt redemption mode now. Speaking of which, maybe we should all visit your parents sometime. Rita hasn't seen her grandparents in a while. Great idea. And your mom will finally see where you're from. Maybe then she'll stop with the provincial remarks. Well, my Salta's not much different from a village. 500,000 people, 1 theater, 2 museums. But hey, it's got a great hospital, where your parents work, and the university you graduated from. That's true. Actually, the rector called recently, invited me to give a guest lecture. I'm thinking of going. You should. It'd be a huge inspiration for the students seeing a successful alumna. Successful? You know, I don't always feel that way. It still seems like a dream, and I'll wake up any minute back in my dorm room. Imposter syndrome classic. Happens to everyone who achieves something. Even you? Of course. Sometimes I'm sitting in a meeting, everyone's listening to me, and I think, why the hell are they listening to a 28-year-old guy? They both laughed. The microwave beeped, signaling the food was ready. Marisol took out the plates and served the food. What shall we toast to? Miguel asked, pulling out a bottle of wine. The new contract? Better to everything finally falling into place. To family. They clinked their glasses. Outside, the city glowed. Cars rushed along in the distance, people busy with their lives. But here, in the warm kitchen, it was quiet and cozy. You know, said Marisol, I'm glad it all turned out this way. With your mom, I mean. It was hard listening to everything she said. But at least now the cards are on the table. So what now? Now, we live. We work. We raise Rita. We build relationships with our parents. Just normal life. Normal? With your energy? You won't rest until you've taken over all of Latin America. The world can wait. First, we need to put our own house in order. And I think today we took the first step. A big step. Mom's probably still awake, calling all her friends. Let her. Maybe now she'll finally stop being ashamed of her provincial daughter-in-law. She wasn't ashamed. She just didn't know. You saw it the moment she found out the truth, she changed. That's what saddens me. Does it really take titles and status for someone to be respected? Not for everyone, but for many, yes. That's the world we live in. A sad world. But it has us. And Rita. And even my mom, with all her quirks. Marisol smiled. That's true. All right, enough philosophizing. Tomorrow's going to be a big day, signing the contract and hosting our parents. You'll manage. You're a real iron lady. I'm not iron at all. Just stubborn, like your mom rightly pointed out. Provincial stubbornness is a terrifying force. They finished their wine and cleared the dishes. Before bed, Marisol peeked once more into the nursery. Rita was still fast asleep, hugging her bunny. You're growing, my love, Marisol whispered. Tomorrow you'll meet your grandma. She's a little strange, but kind. You'll love her. Night fell over the city. Up on the 23rd floor, all was calm and quiet. And somewhere in a house in San Isidro, an elderly teacher still couldn't fall asleep, nudging her husband every few minutes. Jorge, can you believe it? A CEO, our Marisol, and me? What did I say to her? My God, I'm so ashamed. Go to sleep, Valeria. We'll visit them tomorrow, and you can apologize. Apologies? That's not enough. I'll be grateful to her for the rest of my life for forgiving a foolish old woman, and naming her granddaughter after me, Rita. Tomorrow I'm buying her toys, and clothes, and books, everything. And so ended this long day, full of revelations and discoveries. A day when an old coat helped uncover the truth, and the truth opened the door to real, new relationships. Because sometimes, you have to show people exactly what they expect to see in order to surprise them with reality. And Marisol understood this well. It was no coincidence she had built a successful business from nothing. A provincial girl? Yes, and proud of it. Because from Salta, she brought with her what truly matters, a strong work ethic, loyalty to her values, and the belief that titles mean nothing compared to character. Though sometimes, to make people see that, you have to put on a bit of a performance. But it was worth it. Now little Rita would grow up in a complete family, with loving grandparents. And that was worth more than any business success. The next morning began early. Rita woke up at 6 and made her presence known loud and clear. Marisol jumped out of bed, still half asleep. I'm coming, sweetheart, I'm coming. The nursery smelled of baby powder and something warm and familiar like home. Rita stood in her crib, holding onto the railing, beaming at her mom. Mama, she said clearly. My clever girl, calling for Mama? Mama's here, Mama's with you. Diaper change, washing up, getting dressed. Marisol went through the morning routine on autopilot, her mind already on the day ahead. The contract with the Spanish clients needed one last review before signing, then a team meeting, and after lunch the visit from her mother-in-law. Oh, Rita, Marisol said to her daughter, who was intently trying to pull off her sock. Today you'll meet your grandma. She's kind, just a bit particular. Don't be scared if she starts squeezing and kissing you nonstop. Grandparents are like that, very emotional. Miguel appeared in the kitchen just as Marisol was feeding Rita her porridge. Good morning, my darlings. How did you sleep? Papa, squealed Rita, waving her spoon. Porridge flew everywhere. Oh, Rita, what are you doing? Marisol sighed, wiping the splatters from the table. Temperament, Miguel smirked. She takes after her grandma. Speaking of grandma, has she called yet? Not yet, but give it time. I'd bet money we get our first call by 8 a.m. to double-check the visit time. Right on cue, Miguel's phone rang at exactly 8 o'clock. Yes, Mom. Yes, we remember 3 o'clock. No, you don't need to bring anything. Really, Mom, you don't. Fine, bring whatever you want. What was that about? Marisol asked as he hung up. The usual, asking what to buy, where to go, what to wear. She said she didn't sleep all night choosing a gift for Rita. And what did she choose? She didn't say. Just went, surprise. You know how Mom loves theatrics. After breakfast, the nanny arrived, and Marisol was able to get ready for work in peace. Sharp suit, minimal makeup, hair in a neat bun, the look of a true businesswoman. Gorgeous, Miguel said, hugging his wife. The Spaniards won't stand a chance. They already surrendered. All that's left is signing the paperwork. At the office, the usual buzz of activity filled the space. Programmers were gathered around a whiteboard filled with diagrams, managers were making client calls, and the marketing team was in a meeting room mid-discussion. Marisol walked into her office, where her assistant Lucia, a young woman fresh out of university, was already waiting. Good morning, Maria. Here are the documents for signing, and these are the emails that need your attention. At 11, there's a meeting with the lawyers about the Spanish contract, and at 12, a check-in with the department heads. Thank you, Lucia. Coffee, please, extra strong. And call Andres from tech support. He stayed late last night chasing that bug. I want to hear how it went. On it. Oh, and someone from City Hall called. They'd like you to speak at the Young Entrepreneurs Forum. When is it? In 2 weeks. Add it to the calendar. I'll go unless something comes up. The time flew by until lunch. The contract with the Spanish partners was signed, scanned, and sent. The team welcomed the news with applause. It meant bonuses and exciting new projects. Excellent, said Marisol at the team meeting. Especially the development team. Your prototype made a huge impression on the Spanish side. Miguel, tell your guys the bonus will be generous. After the meeting, Marisol called home to check on Rita. Everything's great, the nanny reported. She ate well, and now we're playing. She learned a new word, give, and she's using it constantly. Marisol smiled. Her daughter was growing by the hour, and every new skill felt like a little victory. By 2:30, Marisol was already home. She changed into something casual, jeans and a soft sweater, and let her hair down. Let her mother-in-law see the real her, not a businesswoman in a suit, but an ordinary young mom. In the kitchen, Soledad was already bustling, preparing light snacks to go with mate. I figured we're having guests, after all, she explained. Thank you, Soledad. You're always so thoughtful. At exactly 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Marisol went to answer it, holding Rita in her arms. The little girl looked around with curiosity. At the door stood Valeria and Jorge, their arms loaded with bags and boxes. Hi. Come on in, please. Valeria froze, staring at her granddaughter. Rita, in turn, was curiously examining the unfamiliar faces. Is that Rita? Valeria asked in a trembling voice. Yes. Rita, this is your grandma and grandpa. Say hello. Rita, of course, didn't say anything. She just reached out toward the shiny brooch on her grandmother's coat. Can I hold her? Valeria asked. Of course. Marisol carefully handed her daughter to her mother-in-law. Valeria took her as gently as if she were holding a piece of delicate crystal, and Rita, who was usually cautious with strangers, suddenly smiled and reached toward her grandmother's face. "Bah," she said clearly. Valeria burst into tears. She said, "Bah. Jorge, did you hear that? Her first word to me, bah." "Valeria, come on now," Jorge said, a bit embarrassed. "At least let us step inside first." They moved into the living room. Marisol helped unpack the gifts, and there were a stunning number of them. Toys, clothes, books, even a child's car seat. "Valeria, you really didn't need to bring all this." "What do you mean didn't need? I've missed 8 months. I have to catch up. And this isn't everything. I made a list of things we still need to get." Meanwhile, Rita had warmed up and was exploring her grandmother, touching her face, tugging at her necklace, trying to take off her glasses. Valeria was melting with happiness. "What a smart and curious girl." Valeria beamed. "Jorge, look, she's definitely one of ours. Everything interests her." "Mama, she's just trying to break your glasses," Miguel noted as he walked over. "Not at all. She's exploring the world. Right, Rita? My little explorer." Over mate, the atmosphere completely relaxed. Valeria began telling stories about raising Miguel, while Jorge shared funny memories from their son's childhood. Rita sat on her grandfather's lap, intently chewing on a biscuit. "Remember, Miguel, when you were 3 and decided you could fly?" Jorge laughed. "You climbed on top of the wardrobe and jumped. Good thing your mom had put pillows down." "He gets that from his grandpa," Valeria sniffed. "You used to jump from trees as a kid too with cardboard wings." "And what were you like as a child, Marisol?" Valeria suddenly asked. "Stubborn," Marisol smiled. "When I decided something, I had to do it. My mom says I announced at 4 that I was going to read, and I wouldn't leave the primer until I'd learned how." "That's how it should be," Valeria approved. "Determination from a young age. I hope Rita takes after her mother." "Speaking of which," Marisol said, "I wanted to ask, would you like to visit my parents sometime? They live about 400 kilometers away, around a 5-hour drive." "Of course we will," Valeria replied instantly. "We must. I want to meet your parents. Imagine all these years and we've never met." "They're good people," Miguel said. "Very warm and welcoming. And their town may not be big, but it's cozy." "What does it matter, big or small?" Valeria waved her hand. "What matters is the people." "Marisol, do your parents know?" "Well, about your business?" "Of course. My dad's incredibly proud. He tells all his patients." "Patients?" "Dad's a surgeon, and my mom's a pediatrician. They both work at the city hospital." "Doctors?" Valeria lit up. "Jorge, did you hear that? Doctors. An educated family. And I thought." She trailed off, remembering the things she'd said the day before. "Oh, don't worry, Valeria. That's all in the past," Marisol said gently. "No, not the past. I'll carry the shame forever. Doctor's such a noble profession. They save lives." "Your profession is no less noble," Marisol replied. "Being a teacher, that's a calling." "Oh, what's my profession now? I'm just a retiree. But you're incredible. You built a business, you give people jobs." Miguel said, "You have more than 50 employees?" 57. "And we're still hiring. The project is growing." Meanwhile, Rita began to get fussy. It was close to nap time. "Oh, the little one's tired," Valeria fussed. "Let me rock her to sleep." "May I?" "Try, but she's picky, doesn't go to everyone." But surprisingly, Rita calmly reached for her grandmother. Valeria gently began humming an old lullaby. Within 5 minutes, the little girl was asleep. "Wow," Soledad said in amazement. "She usually takes half an hour to fall asleep." "Grandma's arms," Valeria said proudly. "They're magic. That's how I used to rock Miguel." She carefully laid her sleeping granddaughter in the crib and stood there for a long time, admiring her. "What a beauty. And so smart, you can tell right away. Look at those attentive little eyes." When they returned to the living room, Valeria suddenly said, "Marisol, I want to show you something." She pulled an old photo album out of her handbag. "I spent all evening looking for this yesterday. Look, this is me at your age." In the photo was a young woman with a playful smile. "You resemble her," Marisol said diplomatically. "No, not her, you," Valeria insisted. "Look, same cheekbones, same face shape. We actually look alike. Maybe that's why I was so harsh yesterday. Deep down, I sensed a kindred spirit but resisted it." "Mama, what are you talking about?" Miguel interjected. What? It happens. People who are alike often clash at first. Marisol, show me pictures of your parents, Valeria said. Marisol took out her phone and opened the gallery. Here, this was last summer. We visited them. In the photo, a silver-haired man in glasses and a kind-faced woman were smiling warmly. Intelligent faces, Valeria approved. You can tell right away they're educated people. They're your only family? Jorge asked. Yes, I'm an only child. A late baby. My mom was 35 when I was born. They tried for a long time, and then finally here I am. So you were a longed-for child, Valeria nodded. You can feel it. It's obvious you were raised in love. The conversation flowed easily after that. They talked about everything: raising children, work, future plans. Valeria no longer hesitated to ask questions about Marisol's business, and Marisol happily shared. Don't competitors get in your way? Her mother-in-law asked. Of course they do. But that's normal. Competition drives progress. The key is always staying one step ahead. How do you manage it all? Business, child, household. Time management, Marisol smiled. And a great team. I couldn't do it alone. Like Soledad, she's a treasure. I completely trust her with Vita. A good nanny is important, but still nothing replaces a mother. A child needs their mother's attention. I do my best. Mornings and evenings are always for her. Weekends, too. Sometimes I even take her to the office. I've set up a kid's corner there. To the office? With the baby? Why not? The staff love it. They say Vita inspires them to work harder. Modern approach, Jorge said thoughtfully. In our time, that didn't exist. Times change, Dad, Miguel noted. Nowadays, a lot of companies create family-friendly environments. And rightly so, Valeria agreed. A woman shouldn't have to choose between a career and a child. By evening, Vita woke up, and the celebration continued. Grandma and Grandpa played with their granddaughter, took photos, and recorded videos. For my friends, Valeria explained. Let them see what a granddaughter I have. And what a daughter-in-law, Jorge added with a smile. Valeria blushed. And daughter-in-law, of course. The best daughter-in-law in the world. They parted ways after dark. Can we come again? Valeria asked, hugging Marisol goodbye. You don't mind? Of course, come by even every day if you want. No, every day would be too much. But, twice a week? Deal. When the door closed behind the guests, Miguel wrapped his arms around his wife. You're a magician. It's like someone swapped my mom for a new one. She's always been this way, kind and loving. She just hid behind a mask of strictness. And the mask broke, and here's the result. Now she'll swing to the other extreme, won't be able to get enough of me. We'll survive. The most important thing is Vita has a grandma and grandpa now. That night, as she was putting her daughter to bed, Marisol reflected on the day. Everything had gone even better than she expected. Valeria had shown herself capable of change, and that was worth everything. You know, Vita, she whispered to her drowsy daughter. Your grandma is a good person. Sometimes good people just get things wrong. But if you help them see clearly, they can change. Remember that, my love. The next day, life returned to its usual rhythm: work, meetings, negotiations. But now Marisol's schedule had a new item: regular visits from her mother-in-law. Valeria began coming twice a week, bringing home-cooked meals, playing with her granddaughter, and helping around the house. You work like crazy, she would say. Let me help however I can. A month later, the long-awaited trip to Marisol's parents finally happened. They traveled in 2 cars: Marisol, Miguel, and Vita in one, Valeria and Jorge in the other. The entire drive, Valeria worried out loud. What if they don't like me? What if they think, oh great, look what kind of mother-in-law our daughter ended up with? Valeria, relax, Jorge said. Normal people don't judge on first impressions. Marisol's parents lived in a modest 2-story house on the outskirts of Salta. They welcomed the guests warmly and openly. Marisol's mother, Elena, immediately reached out for her granddaughter. Vita, my love, look how big you've grown. Her father, Sergio, shook hands with the guests. Very glad to finally meet you. Marisol has told us so much about you. At the lunch table, Valeria finally began to relax. It turned out she and Elena had much in common. Both loved classical literature and were passionate about gardening. You have a wonderful garden, said Valeria. These roses are simply stunning. They're my pride, Elena smiled. I grow them myself, from cuttings. The men had also found common ground. Jorge listened with great interest to his father-in-law's stories about complex surgeries, while Sergio asked questions about electronics. He had always been curious about how modern technology works. I always told Marisol, go into medicine, Sergio laughed. Continue the family tradition. But she said, no, I have my own path. And she was absolutely right. Valeria said passionately, everyone should follow their own way. I spent my whole life trying to steer Miguel when I should have just supported him. Elena nodded knowingly. We didn't immediately accept Marisol's choice either. It seemed like, what kind of profession is this, programming? But now we're proud of her. After lunch, they went for a walk around the city. Marisol showed them the places of her childhood, the school she attended, the plaza where she hung out with friends, the university. It's a small town, she said, but I was happy here. It's a lovely town, Valeria exclaimed. So cozy and green. And the people are so friendly. At the university, they were greeted by the rector himself when he heard that a notable alumna had returned. He came out personally to say hello. Maria, it's wonderful to see you. What about that guest lecture for the students? I'll definitely do it, Dr. Mendez. Maybe we can even organize some kind of internship. That would be fantastic. Our students would be thrilled. Valeria listened with bated breath. Her daughter-in-law was being welcomed as an honored guest. People consulted with her, valued her opinion. I'm so proud of you, she whispered to Marisol as they left the university. Marisol looked at her mother-in-law in surprise. Really? You're amazing. And I was a fool not to see it right away. The ride home was filled with lively conversation. Valeria was already making plans. We must come back again. And invite your parents to visit us. Jorge, we can host them, right? We have a guest room. Of course we can, her husband agreed. Wonderful. We'll be family friends. From that day, much changed. Valeria became not just a mother-in-law, but a true helper and friend. She no longer criticized but supported. She didn't lecture, but began learning herself about modern views, new approaches. You know, Marisol, she said once, thanks to you, I feel like I've been reborn. I realized the world is so much bigger than I ever imagined. And then, a month later, something unexpected happened. Valeria came to Marisol with an unusual request. Marisol, there's something. Do you remember my friend Dona Carmen? The one whose daughter-in-law is a lawyer. I remember. Well, she's in trouble. That daughter-in-law turned out to be a fraud. Set up a fake company, scammed people. Now there's a court case, a huge scandal. Carmen is beside herself. That's awful, Marisol said sincerely. Yes, but that's not all. She has a daughter, Lisa, 23 years old, just graduated from university, a trained economist. A good girl, but after the scandal with her brother's wife, she can't find a job. The family name is tarnished. And, Marisol, maybe you could take her on, even just as an intern? It's not her fault that her sister-in-law turned out to be a criminal. Marisol hesitated. On one hand, hiring someone with a compromised name was a risk. On the other, the girl wasn't to blame. Let her come for an interview. I'll see what kind of person she is. Really? Oh, Marisol, thank you. I knew you'd help. Lisa came 2 days later. A modest, quiet girl with intelligent eyes. She answered questions clearly, had a good diploma, and excellent recommendations from professors. Why do you want to work with us? As soon as they see my last name, they refuse me. But I need to work. I have to help my mom. After the scandal with my sister-in-law, my brother moved away. My father started drinking. Mom's all alone. All right, I'll take you on for a 3-month trial period. If you do well, we'll sign a permanent contract. Tears welled up in Lisa's eyes. Thank you. I promise you won't regret it. And she didn't regret it. Lisa turned out to be a responsible and talented employee. After 3 months, Marisol not only made her a full-time hire but also raised her salary. You're a saint, Valeria said when she found out. I'm not a saint. I just gave someone a chance. I was given a chance once too, accepted for an internship in Spain, even though there were candidates from top universities. Still, not everyone would do that. Thank you. Carmen can sleep peacefully now her daughter is doing well. Time went on. Rita was growing. She started walking and speaking her first words. Marisol's business expanded. They opened a branch in her hometown of Salta, then 2 more in other provincial cities. Valeria became a real grandmother, strict and loving at once. Rita, you can't say that. You have to say please too. She would scold, and then melt instantly at the child's smile. For Valerita's 2nd birthday, the whole extended family gathered. Marisol's parents came, as did friends and colleagues. Valeria bustled in the kitchen alongside Elena. The two grandmothers had become close, now calling each other regularly, sharing recipes and child-rearing tips. "Do you remember," Valeria said to Marisol after the guests had left, "2 years ago you came to us in that old coat?" "I remember. I said something so stupid back then that no matter what, you couldn't wash off the province. But you know what? Now I think thank God it didn't wash off. That provincial groundedness, that work ethic, that simplicity, that's your strength." "Thank you, Valeria." "Oh, come on, Marisol. Call me Mom. We're family now." Marisol smiled. "All right, Mom." Valeria burst into tears. "What an old fool, I am crying again. Just from happiness. I never thought I could be this happy." And 6 months later, another important event happened. Marisol was pregnant again. When she shared the news, Valeria nearly fainted from joy. A second grandchild. A boy or a girl. Oh my God, what happiness. "Mom, calm down," Miguel laughed. "It's only the 3rd month. Calm down? I'm already getting my knitting started. And we have to get the nursery ready." At a family dinner, Valeria suddenly said, "You know, I want to confess something. I've always dreamed of a big family. But after Miguel, we couldn't have more children. The doctors were baffled. And now I look at all of you and think here it is, my big family. Maybe not all by blood, but real." "We're glad it turned out this way too," said Sergio, Marisol's father. "Who would have thought 2 years ago that we'd all be sitting at the same table like this?" "Life is a strange thing," Jorge said philosophically. "You never know what tomorrow will bring." "The most important thing is not to judge by first impressions," added Elena with a wink toward Valeria. "True?" Valeria groaned. "Oh, don't remind me. I'm still ashamed." "And it's right to be ashamed," Marisol said unexpectedly firmly. "But you know what? If it weren't for that day, for those words, maybe we would have kept living in our separate shells. But the shell cracked and we saw each other for who we really are." "Wise words," Valeria nodded. "It's not me who's wise, life taught me. In business, it's the same. An investor comes in, looks down on you, young woman, what could she possibly know? But then you show them the facts, and they realize you know more than they assumed. And their attitude changes instantly. I always said you had a steel will," Valeria said proudly. "You said I was a ragged little provincial girl," Marisol replied with a grin. "Oh, come on, you remember everything. People say things in the heat of the moment." Everyone laughed. The evening was winding down. Rita had fallen asleep right at the table, resting her head on her arms. Valeria gently picked her up and carried her to the bedroom. "Sleep, my love. Grow big and smart, like your mama. And stubborn too, you'll need that." After everyone left, Marisol and Miguel stayed behind in the living room. "Are you tired?" Miguel asked. "A little, but it's the good kind of tired. Who would have thought that Mom would change so much?" "She didn't change. She just became herself. Took off the mask of the strict teacher and allowed herself to be a loving grandmother." "You're so wise." "Wise again. I'm just observant. And patient. That's for sure. Anyone else in your place would have walked away after what she said that day. But I thought you don't choose your family. And if fate brought us together, we have to find a common language. And you did. We all did. It was a shared effort." Miguel hugged his wife. "I love you. And I love you. Now let's go to bed. We have to get up early tomorrow signing the contract with the Chileans." "Work again. What did you expect? The business won't run itself. Especially now that we're expecting a second child, I'll need to work even harder." They went upstairs to the bedroom. The house was quiet. The only sound was the peaceful breathing of Rita from the nursery. Marisol paused by the window, looking out at the night city. Somewhere out there, in San Isidro, Valeria was surely still awake knitting slippers for her future grandchild. Far away in Salta, her parents slept peacefully, happy knowing their daughter was safe and loved. And here, in this apartment in Puerto Madero, the heart of a big, united family was beating. "What are you thinking about?" Miguel asked. "About how everything turned out so unexpectedly. Remember how your mother said she'd never wash the province off me? Well, she was right. And thank God for that. Because it was that provincial resilience that helped me build everything, the business, the family. And reform your mother-in-law," Miguel added. "Not reform. Just help her become her true self. You know, I think she was always kind and loving. But years of teaching left a mark. She got used to grading people, judging them. And now she had to learn to see differently. I'm glad you gave her that chance." "It wasn't me, life gave her the chance. I just showed up. In an old coat, with faith in something better." They went to bed. And in the morning, a new day would begin with new tasks and new accomplishments. But no matter what the future held, Marisol knew her family was by her side. Real, loving, understanding. And that was her greatest achievement. Not the business, not the money, not the recognition. But this simple human closeness, mutual understanding, love. The kind of thing worth enduring an old coat and painful words for. The kind of thing that would now stay with her forever.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.